Yes, sir.
Who's that? Please take it. Take the jar.
Probably sooner, because he's always he has a working on the draft. He always has the draft done because we're writing the questionnaire.
Better than 16%, we'll see.
Yeah, I put it in your
Guys, y'all get through the whole MBD agenda?
We did, barely.
You need to let me know I have it too.
This is the one that well, we're
Jonathan and I just talked to him, so we,
yeah,
I'm never sure we're good, but we are.
I'm gonna leave that because we don't.
Yeah, no problem.
That's just skin scar. That's just skin scar.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll work on it. I've been basking in cooler for the past 3 days. I have no idea. Okay. I mean, I can see ways and go up there.
Yeah, you don't worry, so that way we don't. Thank you.
Okay, we will call to order the meeting for the Shenandoah City Council, Wednesday, January 24th, 2018, 7 p.m. Call the roll. Notice that everybody is here. If you would stand with me, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to stay standing, we'll say a quick invocation afterwards. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Dear Lord, we just want to say thank you for tonight. Thank you for your grace, your blessings. Thank you for the many things that you give us in our lives that we take for granted. And along those lines, I think we take each other for granted sometimes. So I'd like to thank each and every person in this room for being here, for contributing, for caring, for being part of the solution, not part of the problem. We pray all these things in your Son's name, and all God's people said, Amen. Amen. Okay, we'll move right into item 5, which is Citizens Forum, and I only had one person sign up, and that was Mr. Gary Henson. If you will please approach the podium. Residents are invited to speak for 3 minutes on matters relating to city government that relate to agenda or non-agenda items. Please approach this podium and state your address for the record.
My name is Gary Henson. My address is 714 Thornwood Drive, Shenandoah, Texas 77381. Good evening, Council. I appreciate the opportunity to come tonight before you and to share some thoughts and specifically to ask a question. It concerns me some that I am here tonight to have to bring this particular subject up to you. Gary Watts and I filed a formal ordinance complaint against Kathy Ryer on November 3rd, 2017. The complaint filed against interim city administrator Kathy Ryer was for violations of ordinance section 2-97A, powers and duties of interim city administrator or assistant city administrator, and or section 2-98, powers and duties of the city administrator. The complaint was filed with the Shenandoah Police Department since it was a municipal ordinance, municipal violation. The Shenandoah Police Department referred it out to another agency, which I'm not 100% sure why, except that it obviously was for, there wouldn't be any conflict for them. That was 82 days ago. Detective Gordon told me that he referred it out to the Texas Rangers so there wouldn't be any conflict. After some time went by, I received a call from another Montgomery agency, county agency, that had received the complaint, and because the Rangers couldn't or didn't handle those types of complaints. So he interviewed me, and after his investigation, he told me he would turn it over to the district attorney's office and they would decide whether to proceed. Well, it's been 82 days, as I said, and I have not heard from anyone from the county or anyone else. Gentlemen, this is Class C misdemeanor, and I thought it should be handled by our court, Shenandoah prosecutor and court. I'm here today because the city of Shenandoah prosecutor works for you guys, mayor and council, and I would like to have an opportunity to have my day in court and ask you to contact the prosecutor to inquire on the court date. Since they work directly for you, I hope you can have the prosecutor or judge contact me on a trial date. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henson. Okay. We are going to move agenda item 11 up. Take a look at your packets. Item 11 is discussion and possible action regarding traffic signals at I-45 and Tamina Road, Research Forest Drive. And I'm going to ask one of the representatives from Commissioner Nowak's office to introduce himself so that if we have any questions during this agenda item, I can direct them towards the expert.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Charles Cobb. I'm the Traffic Operations Manager at Commissioner Nowak's office, Precinct 3 Commissioner here in Montgomery County. I recommended this item to the city due to allow for better coordination of traffic signals on and along Research Forest Drive. My recommendation to the city would be to enter an interlocal agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation to maintain the traffic signal at Research Forest Drive. We have similar agreements in place at Rayford Road and Interstate 45 to allow for timing, cross-coordination between intersections and between the state-owned corridor. This will allow the city full control of the intersection to enhance timing on and along Research Forest. So I'm also here to answer any questions you may have. The interlocal agreement we entered with the state was an agreement to where they would allow us to install our equipment, add our timing, add our coordination. However, maintenance still belonged to the state. So I would recommend that the city start with that type of agreement first. And I will send a copy of that agreement to whoever at your direction so the city can look at it. If I can just get their info so you can have a draft and we can get it to your attorney for evaluation. Is there any questions that I could help or assist with?
So your equipment is connected to their equipment via fiber or wireless?
We
or-
actually have fiber in the traffic cabinet at Research Forest and Interstate 45, so there would be no cost other than just interchanging our equipment, taking out theirs, and adding our controller into the intersection. Just a matter of swapping of cords. The issue we have now at Research Forest, one of the issues is you have coordination at Tamina and David Memorial. Then over here at Research Forest and Holly Hill, you have coordination on and along Research Forest. We're synced to the county server while the state is synced to their server. So there could be a fluctuation of 4 to 5 seconds, maybe up to 10 seconds, which would cause an unnecessary delay. And in the traffic world, 4 to 5 seconds is pretty huge when you're sitting there at a red light.
Absolutely.
So can someone clarify me, right now, we've, several years ago, we took control of all of the signals along Research, but right now the state still controls that intersection. So
Yes,
what
sir.
we'd be asking the state to do is give us that control,
Yes, sir.
and then as you guys are already managing our signals on Research, we would
Yes, sir.
then allow you to hook in.
We have an existing interlocal agreement with the city for traffic signal maintenance.
Right.
So that would fall under that existing agreement, is my understanding.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer. So what we have tonight, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have a resolution that if we approve it, would say that we support this. There may be a future agenda item that we'd have to approve, but this is kind of get the ball rolling to officially
Correct.
give approval from us.
Correct. This is, because it's a resolution, it's a statement of city council to someone, for instance, TxDOT, that says we're for this.
I motion to approve.
I'd second it.
Okay, so we had a motion by Councilman Beavers, we had a second by Councilman Fletcher. Do we have any discussion?
So how does this affect TxDOT's plan, mobility plan for I-45?
It just allows us to control the timing. We will,
So you're
of
not really
course,
going to change the cycle of the intersection itself? Because I know it's congested because of too many cars, I understand that.
yes, it's congested due to too many vehicles. We will change the cycle lengths. Right now, they're similar inside your equipment and the state's equipment, but lining it up to eliminate that 4 to 5 second gap, that 10-second gap, you'll see an immediate improvement. We will consult the state with anything that we put in there. We have a good working relationship with the state, so we'll make sure we will maintain that.
And the county has the other intersections along 45,
Yes.
and that's the other direction that's going to help.
Yes,
get both
we had the
directions.
same issue down in Rayford Sawdust where we had intersection on one side, our intersection on one side, and the state in the middle, so they allowed this agreement. This is something they do for the city of Houston, other entities on along any of their major corridors.
Excellent.
Any more discussion?
I appreciate you coming tonight and
Absolutely.
the partnership that we have with Precinct 3.
Yes, the county works great with the city of Shenandoah. We appreciate the same.
Tell the commissioner we appreciate his office greatly.
Yes, sir.
Okay, enough discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charles. Okay, so we will circle back to item 6, and we will resume the public hearing on the levy of assessments within the Metro Park Public Improvement District. Would anyone like to speak during the public hearing?
Mayor, we opened it at what time? Reopened it?
We reopened it at 7:13.
Thank you.
Nobody? Okay, well then we will close the public hearing at 7:14. Item 7, and I'm not going to read this whole item, but discussion and possible action to adopt the following ordinance, the one that you see in your agenda packet, which is an ordinance of the City of Shenandoah, Texas, approving a service and assessment plan and an assessment role for authorized improvements for the Metro Park Public Improvement District, and as stated in your agenda packet. Do we have any discussion? Or I'm sorry, do I have a motion?
I motion or move that we approve the ordinance.
Second. So I have a motion by Councilman Fletcher, I have a second by Councilman Raymaker. Do we have any discussion?
So this is, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the piece that
kind of governs how we'll move forward with the district, the service improvement plan, or service and assessment plan, how it'll actually function. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
If you all have some questions, we've got
Jonathan
several.
Frails, the city's bond attorney, is here.
I don't have any other specific questions.
But we appreciate your willingness.
Absolutely, I'm happy to be quiet.
Do we have any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Discussion and item 8, discussion and possible action to adopt the following ordinance. An ordinance approving and authorizing the issuance and sale of the City of Shenandoah Special Assessment Revenue Bonds as stated in your agenda packet. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the ordinance.
So I have a motion by Councilman Fletcher to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by the Mayor Pro Tem. Do we have any discussion?
I'd like to read a paragraph from page 41 of the documents, just to be clear. The bonds are special obligations of the city payable solely from the pledged revenues and other funds comprising the trust estate. As and to the extent provided in the indenture, the bonds do not give rise to a charge against the general credit or taxing power of the city and are payable solely from the sources identified in the indenture. The owners of the bond shall never have the right to demand payment thereof out of money raised or to be raised by taxation or out of any funds of the city other than the pledged revenues, as and to the extent provided in the indenture. No owner of the bond shall have the right to demand any exercise of the city's taxing power to pay the principal of the bonds or the interest or redemption premium, if any, thereon. The city shall have no legal or moral obligation to pay the bonds out of any funds of the city other than the pledged revenues and other funds comprising the trust estate. So, as we just did previously, these bonds will be paid for by a special assessment that only the owners of the land that will be assessed will be given those bonds, or will be assessed that fee. And the owner has specifically requested this. So.
Thank you, Byron, well put.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item 9.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Moving on to item 9, discussion and possible action to adopt the following ordinance. An ordinance of the City of Shenandoah, Texas, providing for the holding of a general election to be held on May 5th, 2018 for the purpose of electing a mayor and 2 city council members, positions 1 and 5, and providing details relating to the holding of such elections.
Motion to approve?
I have a motion to approve by Mayor Pro Tem. I have a second by Councilman McLeod. Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 10, discussion and possible action to approve agreements for the May 5th, 2018 election and authorize the mayor to sign. We'll do these separately. A, election services agreement with Montgomery County, Texas.
Make a motion to approve.
So I have a motion by Councilman McLeod.
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Raymaker. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Discussion and possible action to approve agreements for the May 5th, 2018 elections and authorize the mayor to sign. B, joint election agreement with Montgomery County, Texas.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilman Brott.
Second.
I have a second by Councilman McLeod. Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. We already did item 11, so we will move to item 12. Discussion and possible action regarding a fence at the toddler park. Do I have a motion?
Oh, we got this.
We have a We have some cost information that we can put up on the screen if you guys would like that. Y'all were all given a hard copy.
I think since obviously someone would be making a motion for one of these particular options, that'd be a good idea for the audience to be able to see which option it is.
Okay.
Or maybe they make a motion to table.
There we go.
So I guess I have a question, Bill. What are we voting on specifically? I mean, we've already taken action regarding approving a fence there. Is the action at this point just to give specific direction to staff as to which fence we want, or?
That is correct.
Okay.
These, as you can see, these options, you've got 3 or 4, well, count them up, I guess in a way, you have 6 options. And then it is to give city staff the direction of which of these options city council wants to approve. And because several of these prices exceed the $15,000 limit, the city administrator could not approve some of these without council approval.
So it's 3 locations and then the 3 different material options, right?
Correct.
Correct. And the locations tie in with the exhibit and the agenda pack that you all should have.
Now, I'm gonna make a motion that we adopt the aluminum fence along the path number 3 with no gate blocking the west side.
Just for clarification, path 3 would be the red line?
The red line.
Location
The
3.
furthest inside. So,
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilman McLeod at location 3, made out of aluminum with a non-ADA gate.
Well, I don't mean,
Is that
no,
correct?
I'm just saying no
gate.
No gate?
no gate on the west side.
My apologies.
So there'd be a gate on the east, no gate on the west, for clarification? Thank you.
Because it means you wouldn't need any ADA concrete work or anything.
So, I have a motion by Councilman McLeod at location 3, made out of aluminum with a non-ADA gate and no gate.
I'll second it.
I have a second by Councilman Brought. And do we have any discussion?
That should put the price somewhere between just over the 4,000, right? Because it's a non-ADA gate you'd be putting on the west side.
Do we want to put that up there for the audience to see?
Picture or what?
Yeah,
Oh,
It'll be some.
that way they can see where we're talking about.
So,
What would be the
that's
thought
15 there,
process?
so it's just the linear footage multiplied plus 15.
Right, so one gate, so that's going to be the cost table went away, but that's the $4,700 option.
Okay.
Plus $1,500 for that one
Okay.
non-ADA compliant gate.
Okay. I see what I see how the table works now, okay.
Okay.
Got it.
so you're saying that if we had one ADA and one non-ADA and we made it out of aluminum, that would be $21,170.
4,700 plus 15.
Kenny? So if we did the one ADA gate and one non in aluminum, according to the furthest south, that's the 21,170. Make sure I'm in the right spot.
Actually, at location 3, concrete work and additional Grading is not required. The concrete at that location already meets the ADA requirements.
So then the total cost for location 3, the furthest south one with an aluminum gate, with aluminum gates is $21,170.
No,
That's the furthest north.
it'd be 7725. I better let Joseph, I need to
Right, so-
confer with Joseph. Is there two
Really
of these?
quickly, I think I can kind of see some of the confusion
Yeah,
here.
3 grand, yeah.
Location 1 is the northmost option. On the diagram, it's on the bottom.
Location 3 is the furthest inside behind the shrubs.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, so the cost of that fence is $4,700. As Kenny was saying, that area, the grading, you don't need to do ADA gates in that area because it already meets those requirements. The grading is already less than 2% in those areas. So if you added a gate or 2 gates, it's going to be $1,500 per gate for the location 3 area.
So
And
this
that's
pricing
what-
of $77.25 includes an ADA and a non-ADA gate, as long as we use location 3.
That's just 2 ADA gates, because no concrete work will need to be done for those. So
For
it's
either
just the
side.
cost of the gate. So that's why it's $3,000, because it's 2 $1,500 gates. Yeah, it kind of got grouped together just so you didn't have charts all over the place.
Okay.
And you'll see the asterisk
I got
there
what you
explaining
did.
that.
Okay, so that there's no difference in cost between an ADA and a non-ADA gate.
At location 3.
Right.
Right, the additional cost comes in with the concrete.
The concrete, well, that's what,
Yeah,
that's
and
the
that's-
actual
that's-
gate itself, there's no difference.
Correct. Right.
That's what I was
The concrete is
clarifying.
$12,500.
Yeah.
The
by
gate itself, it has to be ADA compliant,
Yeah,
and that's $1,500.
okay.
It's whether or not there's additional grading work or concrete work that has to take place.
Okay, so with using option 3 for the gate, for the fence location, the cost of that fence is, without a gate,
For the aluminum,
for aluminum.
$4,725.
That's leaving both sidewalks open.
Correct, no gates.
And now I add the gates for that plan, how much?
That's $1,500 per gate.
Ron, the total cost with 2 gates in that location with aluminum is $77.25.
All right, got it. Just want to be sure.
Estimated.
So then, shouldn't we go ahead and just go ahead and put the gates there with that fence? Not leave it open, put the gates there, because kind of defeating the purpose of the fence.
We can. One of the reasons I proposed it was the cost of the ADA concrete work.
I think that's the wrong view to look at, as cost only.
But, no, I'm fine
now
with
that we know
that.
that
One of the concerns was, that I think people had brought up, was the possibility of using it for a dog park. And if it's completely gated edge to edge, there might be that temptation. So, I mean, 7,700 is not bad. That's actually cheaper than the 13,000 we originally were quoted. So, I definitely like this location because I think it minimizes the impact. I mean, I've never been a big fan or proponent of the fence, but if we're going to do it, we need to do it in a way that looks aesthetically pleasing as possible. And pushing it behind the shrubs, I think, is an appropriate thing to do. And it's going to minimize its appearance. And as the shrubbery grows up and as the greenery takes hold, the visual impact of the fence will be much less.
So the greenery's been there for 2 years? When is it going to take hold? I mean, how much more change is there really going to be in the greenery?
But having the fence in that location allows that to happen.
The only objection I have to that is the functionality. Because if you go by that park, you'll watch the kids are going around that sidewalk, taking the loop all the way around, and at that point, you limit that ability.
Well, I like location 3, I just would prefer that we have gates on it.
Well, that's the location.
Yeah.
Well, he's talking about having gates on it. Okay, it's gonna have the gates on it, good. Is that the motion?
All right, so I'll amend the motion to have both gates. I mean, if 7720, I thought it was gonna be 7725 plus another 12,
Okay,
so.
I'll second that.
Well, could you, we got a second, you got a second amended.
I'll third it.
Okay, so we have an amended motion by Councilman McLeod at location 3, made out of aluminum with 2 gates. We have a second by Councilman Raymaker.
How high are these, 4 feet? 3 feet. Architectural gates,
Yes.
yes. And again, that 3 feet minimizes that visual impact from the road.
Do we have any more discussion?
I'm happy to get a fence either way. I don't necessarily like the location of that one, but just from that standpoint of functionality, but if we considered location 1, I would consider without the gates.
I would say this, the one thing that I do like about location 3 is that in the future, if we ever do want to put a parking space, where parking space is, there in that northeast corner of the park, then it wouldn't disrupt that fence, where that fence is. So that at least provides that opportunity in the future.
That is true.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0 to put an aluminum fence at location 3 with 2 gates. Item 13, discussion and possible action to adopt the following resolution. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Shenandoah, Texas, creating the City of Shenandoah Audit Committee.
Council, this came back from the last meeting, and you'll see the proposed policy attached. So if you're ready to form the committee tonight, it's discussion and possible action.
So I need a motion.
Can we talk about who wants to be on it? Pre-motion?
Form the committee first.
I think we have to form the committee
All right,
first, and then we can put people to it.
Well,
I'll make a motion to create the committee.
So we have a motion by Councilman Raymaker to create an audit committee.
but, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're approving the resolution, and the resolution includes spaces for the names.
You can do, you've got 2 or 3 options. One, you can pass the resolution simply creating an audit committee. You can then have, if you so elect, and then pass that resolution. If you pass it, then you can have a second motion to appoint people to the committee. Or you can, and right now, that's what exists in front of you right now. If Councilman Raymaker made a motion to pass a resolution and appoint X and Y, then the way it's presented now, you would have 2 motions to get people actually on the committee.
We would revise the resolution to add those names. So that the one the mayor signs will have those names.
And from a timing perspective, it's important that we appoint the people tonight.
Yeah, Lewis updated me yesterday, and he said that the final draft is going through last review, so he should have it to me next week after. Then we can make it a time to meet. I do have to submit it 6 months after the close of our fiscal year, so we're looking at the end of March. So the sooner we can get it seen in council and approved, the better.
Okay.
Well, without getting into too much
Do we have a
detail
second?
then, what's that? No, we don't have a second yet, and that's what I was about to say. So without getting into too much detail, because we can't deliberate without having.
All right, I got a second.
Second call, okay, well then we can have discussion, and then we can always
Let's have
change
some
it if we need to. So we have a motion by Councilman Raymaker, we have a second by Councilman McLeod. Do we have any discussion? So the first discussion obviously would be, do we have anybody that is volunteering to serve on this committee?
I think it was Byron made a good point last time to stagger. I think that was you, right? To stagger it.
That's how the resolution is written as well.
Yeah. And so,
So you're off the hook is what you're saying.
exactly, that's exactly what I'm saying.
No, we're not, we're staggering
that's the
election
truth.
cycles, so.
Well, yeah, but he can't go on the committee now, and then his election's in a couple of months, so it really needs to be
No,
you,
it's-
Ted, or Charlie.
No, what is
That's not
it?
the
One of
way the
each.
resolution
Oh, one of each, okay. I was trying to get you out of it.
I'm still out of it.
Well, that's
Charlie, would
okay,
you
I'll
be willing to
volunteer
serve?
anyway.
You said you'd volunteer? Okay, so Councilman Raymaker said
See,
he would
now I'm off the
volunteer.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have a second council member? Because the mayor's plate's pretty full, so I'm more than welcome
Charlie?
to have somebody else serve in this
Charlie.
capacity.
Charlie.
Nominate Charlie.
You're already doing a pretty good job. You did a good job during budget, so.
Nobody can get into the books like you.
All right.
Okay, so we
So,
have two volunteers.
Amend your motion?
No, first we need to pass,
Right. Amend the motion to include.
or you
Yeah,
can
amend the
amend the
motion,
motion. Either
exactly.
you can amend the motion, yes.
All right, Ron, go ahead and amend the motion.
Right, I'll make a motion to create the audit committee comprised of myself and Charlie Brad.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilman Raymaker, we have a second by Councilman McLeod. Do we have any discussion? I'd like to say thank you to you two gentlemen for volunteering to serve on this committee.
Very much so.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Let's move on to item 14, which is discussion and possible action regarding the February 14th, 2018 City Council meeting schedule. So here's the deal. I called the interim city administrator and brought to the attention that February 14th is Valentine's Day. And so I thought maybe we would move this to the day before, which would be the 13th on Tuesday. But apparently, as I was told tonight, we have a public...
We have some public hearings
We have some
scheduled,
public hearings
as
we've
we
already
were
posted for that night. So,
I know, I can do Thursday.
well, no, we've already posted them for the 14th.
Yeah, we can't,
Okay.
So we can't change those, unfortunately. So this item is pretty much dead. I just want to go on record with all the wives as saying I was trying to get this moved up to Valentine's Day.
Restaurants are too busy on
Was-
Valentine's Day.
That's right.
Well, you could have cooked your wife dinner, you know. That's what I plan on doing.
I thought every day was Valentine's Day.
Okay, so
No action. then.
we should call no action for that bill? Okay, no action. So we'll move on to item 15, which is discussion and possible action regarding park rules.
Just a quick recap. This was discussed at the last council meeting. Several topics were brought up by council. There was a few rewordings. There's some more examples that staff has put together for council to consider. So as we go through these topics that were brought up, I think probably the best way to do this is to hit each of these topics one by one so council can discuss and make a decision and give staff some guidance. And those topics I listed in bullet points on the agenda item. And also have the exhibit for references on particular items. So I'll go ahead and read the first.
So just to be clear, you want us to vote on each one of these bullet points?
Well,
It's
these
a
were all the,
discussion.
We could just do
only.
discussion, just to get a feel.
yeah, it's discussion.
This is discussion and possible action.
I mean, at least
You're
let's
right.
discuss
You're
one
right.
by one.
Yeah, I agree. Discuss each item, and if
We
we
can
find.
consider action after that.
Right.
Okay, that makes much more sense. I didn't want to have to go through each one.
So if you'd like, I can read the first bullet point, or however you'd like.
Absolutely, yeah,
to
no,
do there.
Can we put these up then on the?
Well, Joseph, you feel free to go ahead and read
Yeah,
the
you
first
can go
one.
ahead, yeah, you can go ahead and read while they're,
All right, and I pulled these, I listened to the minutes and pulled each of these topics. From
page
those
469, Chris. Oh, there you go.
minutes. And the first bullet point is,
Dude's good.
the first point that came up is, should the pool be included as a park or not, based on the definition in City Ordinance Chapter 54?
So one thought, there's several differences between the pool and the park. The park is a public open access, and the pool is controlled access. It's fenced in. There's some rules that are different. Pets have to be leashed in the park. There's no animals supposed to be in the pool area. I'm just throwing this some differences out for purposes of discussion. So the rules are going to be different. And whether or not that constitutes it being a different entity or not, the rules are certainly going to be different, at least, and again, I can think off the top of my head those examples. The hours of operation are different. I mean, our toddler park and our main city park have the same hours of operation, have the same rules, the lease laws apply, et cetera. So I'm kind of throwing that out there as maybe leaning towards they're sort of different entities.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Councilman McLeod. I see these as two different entities.
Well, I do until you get to the parking lot now, because the parking lot, then what, can I camp over there? Can I camp in that parking lot? I can't camp in the parking lot in the park.
You mean overnight parking?
Yeah. I could put my Class C RV in that parking lot, and I could be just as good as if I was at Walmart.
Look at you.
And I say that only because our friends at Walmart encourage that, but
It's a valid
I don't
point,
know
but
that we want to allow that opening.
I think that's a separate discussion, though. I think we could put those rules within the park without having the park fall within necessarily, I'm sorry, in the pool, without necessarily having the pool fall underneath the park.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking
They can have their own set of rules.
I'm just thinking of uniformity. I mean, if you want to exclude the pool parking lot, you know, it's you keep one set of rules, and you maintain one set of rules. What happens inside the fence by the pool, that's another matter, but other than that, it's like any of the other parks.
I think we had one agenda item a year or so ago where someone wanted to lease the pool or whatever, and there was discussion about the parking lot being a separate entity altogether. As
No, that was
opposed
just
to the pool. I don't know.
the swim team wanted to be able to put some signs up.
Yeah.
But the city administrator has the right to allow that.
So there's a shark's meet there. I mean, we're not going to have a bunch of RVs parking.
Yeah, that's
have-
overnight parking is a question, and they specifically a couple of years ago, I don't remember exactly when, allowed overnight parking at the pool parking lot and not at the park parking lot. So that's a discussion item that, you know, certainly open for discussion. I don't know if we want to get into it tonight, but
Okay.
but that's it's certainly a valid item for talking about, that, you know, you could leave trailers there and cars there, and
I mean, right now I can't park an RV on the street in the city, but I could park it in the pool parking lot as things stand today.
But yet, we don't have that problem.
Yeah, we can address that if it becomes a RV parking lot. We can change it, but
Unless we're looking at revenue.
no, thank you.
No.
In general, my philosophy on this and all the others is going to be, let's regulate as little as possible, and if a problem comes up, we can address it.
I would agree.
Let's not try to predict every nuanced issue and try to regulate it away. So I'd leave the.
so I think
as it
question
is.
one's been answered.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
The second topic is related to also the final topic, so we can kind of hit those both at the same time, which is permanent signs were requested at the main park, and also adding a permanent sign at the toddler park. Now, if we can look at the exhibits, some ideas.
Joseph, I think it'd be good to address the rules first and then consider the aesthetics
I would agree with that.
after that, if that's all right.
Okay.
Just because the more rules, the bigger the sign, just gonna.
Right, that's why I said they go hand in hand with the, so we can look at the rewording of rules on the park signs first.
So we do the baby stuff first, the reserving of the park at City Hall.
Yeah, I think we should do the rewording last.
Do it last?
Yeah, I
Okay.
suppose.
That'll work. So the next would be, should those reserving the park be required to obtain a permit at City Hall? So currently, they have to physically come to City Hall to obtain that permit. And I believe it's mentioned, could that just be available wholly and completely online?
Reserve the park?
Pavilion.
The park pavilion.
The park
Sorry.
pavilion online.
I fully believe we should be able to reserve online or over the phone.
I don't think if we can pay our utility bills online, we ought to be able to reserve the parking.
Agreed.
I certainly think it's worth a try.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, I'm with Mike. I've thought about that. I'm okay with it, giving it a try, and if we have an issue with it, I think we just need to be smart about it and
If you get a
go back
dozen
and
people from
modify it.
Katy reserving it
Yeah.
and coming up here, then, well, we'll deal with that, and we have to go back, but I think it's worth a shot. And if we can come up with a nice system that works, and it's integrated, and they can, and it takes some relief off the, I mean, if you're a regular worker, you work 8 to 5 downtown, and you want to have a party for your kid on a Saturday, it's pretty tough to get up here and get that done. So if we can make it easier on residents and it doesn't become an issue, why not? Why not give it a shot? Now, again, I don't know what the
We'll look
best
into that.
system, Chris, would be, or if there's, somebody has one out there that's going to make it nice and easy. Surely somebody's got a system out there that can work and make it easy for her.
We'll look into that.
So,
Just an interesting statistic. I look back at the reservations, and we're running about a 60% non-residential use of the pavilion and 40% for rental of the
We
pavilion.
can't restrict non-residents by
Right.
any means. Right?
so non-residents are already reserving it.
Yes.
Yeah,
At a greater-
60%
at a
of
greater
the reservations were made by non-residents versus 40.
To that point, can we continue to track that and make sure it doesn't go up and even hopefully see if it goes down?
Absolutely, we'll continue tracking.
Perfect.
All right, the next bullet point was, should inflatable bounce houses be allowed in the park by permit was mentioned.
I'd like to see those allowed. I think we can, put a size restriction on it. I think we can,
Where would you propose this?
right there by the pavilion. Let's say 5-year-old's having a birthday party, they want to have a bouncy house out there. I've got a bouncy house at home that we would probably take up there, and, so I think that's,
And those people are going to
Doable.
assume all the risk of that.
yeah, absolutely. Which would be within the permit that they sign
Yeah,
off on.
my neighbor, every year for the little girl's birthday, they set up a bouncy house, and other than the kids gleefully laughing, you wouldn't even know that there was one there. So it's not a problem for people living near the park either.
It has to be close enough to the pavilion to plug in. I mean,
It's a good point.
can't be that far. I guess it could be
Because you can't have a
200-foot
generator.
extension cord, but.
Yeah.
So what are the thoughts? Like, basically, you'd have to reserve the pavilion in order to be able to use the
Reserve the
bouncy
pavilion
house.
in order to be able to have a permit for the bouncy house, and then make sure that we have some sort of restrictions. We wouldn't want to come out there and have,
The carnival, basically.
yeah, we wouldn't have a carnival out there on the lawn, but, yeah, maybe have some size restrictions that make sense, that are,
Maybe if you just limit it to one,
there you go.
then you don't have to worry necessarily about the size.
Well, they make
I
some
don't know,
pretty
if you've
big
been, I about to
ones.
say, have you been down
I
that
have,
Pump It
I've
Up
seen
place?
it, yeah.
Pretty big.
You probably have to limit it to one and also limit it to, some of them use water and there's really,
Yeah, you wouldn't want
No
water.
I use water, yeah, I agree with that.
so you want to probably make sure it doesn't use water while it's out there.
The dry bouncy house.
Okay. And we'll have to modify the permit form, because right now the permit form says no inflatable bounce houses allowed, so we can strike that and then look at some verbiage for, restricted to one.
Do you want me to give
dry,
them a,
I think there'd have to be a liability waiver in there as well, if they're gonna bring a bouncy house.
well,
That's
there's,
what I said at Fairlawn
Yeah.
West, right?
I'm sure
there's
you and
already,
Bill can get together
I'm sure Bill
and
can
get that knocked out.
get that figured out.
so you're thinking directly, and I think we should designate the area, and so I'm thinking, I just pulled up Google Earth, that's why. So that space, that grassy, sort of directly in front of the pavilion before the tennis courts is what you're thinking is the best area for these devices? Because you really can't go to the east.
There's, Are you speaking of the almond shape?
Yeah, sort of that almond-shaped space, because there's,
Yeah, that would work, and there's electrical outlets there that they could.
right.
Right, that's, yeah, you're exactly where I was thinking.
Because I think you wouldn't want it just stuck anywhere. You'd want them, if you bring one, this is where it's going. We could also monitor the grass in that area and see if that's an issue. I don't think with as few as we would have, it's going to be one, but.
Okay. Can definitely do that. The next topic was, should reservations for other elements of the park be allowed? So
I
should
say
people
no.
be
I
allowed to?
I say no.
Yeah, pavilion only is my opinion.
All right. That was quick. And then the next topic was, should organized sports be allowed? And there's also offered possibly it could be allowed by permit.
I think they should be allowed and no permit necessary. I think by permit, you're basically giving a reservation system. And so that, I don't think we should reserve the field for anybody, but they should be able to use it. I think the way the park is designed is not going to be a problem. If it is, we can address it.
I think it would only be attractive to, really young children.
Very young.
I'm okay with addressing it later. I think the one thought to having it by permit is, number one, you get to see ahead of time how many participants, what sports, what age group. You get to make sure that you limit it to one team, not multiple teams. But that, again, that's something that we can wait and see if we have an issue with, and if we do, then we institute a permit later on.
Yeah, good point,
It's
Rich.
logical.
All right. Moving through these quickly. The next is, we're back to rewording of the rules on the park signs, and then also the permanent sign discussion.
Now that you've got enough from the big philosophical things, do you think you could draft a recommendation?
In the exhibit, we can take a look at
Okay.
what staff's put together so far, and there may be some slight modifications that we can make to it.
474.
And we could look at wording first, and then discuss design, if council would like to. So the basic idea here is the left-hand sign is for the main park, and that's listing all the rules that we currently have on our existing sign. The right-hand version is a more abbreviated, kind of taking out some of the more obvious, on the left hand you'll see no disorderly conduct, which is, state law. There's things that were removed on the abbreviated version and kind of focus more on some of the problems you'd see at a park, such as camping, alcohol, smoking, and some of our more specific rules to the park. So I just wanted to present those to council to see if they thought, if they preferred the more lengthy version with all the rules posted, or with the more abbreviated. And it's up to modification what rules you would like to see on the sign or removed.
Simple rules.
Yeah.
I like the simple version.
I would think, all these rules are basically ordinances anyway and can be enforced by PD, so I think we would want just to highlight the ones that would just keep it very simple.
Fireworks are banned in the whole city. Glass containers may be something we want to remind everybody about, particularly obviously in the spray ground area, but the fact that glass containers are actually banned in the whole park. And that's not something I think people normally immediately think about. I think a lot of people realize that when you go into a pool area, again, that fenced area, it's all hard, little kids run around barefoot. People probably don't feel that's immediately as you walk into a park, so you may need to tell them that. So I agree, in general, keep the rules short, but also the stuff to me that's not obvious ought to be, I definitely want the no loose pets on there, because it's not that's not our citywide. Pets don't have to be on a leash, but within the park, we do have the ordinance that pets have to be on a leash. So that's something that's out of, anything in the park that's out of the ordinary or not an obvious thing, I think. We don't need to list fireworks, but we should tell people, hey, no glass containers.
Right.
That's my thought, is think about those rules that are.
And that's kind of, staff discussed it, we do have a citywide ordinance, no loose dogs, but sometimes when people go to a park, they kind of feel this, like they can let their dog off the leash. And so it's, felt that was an appropriate reminder of.
Absolutely.
Just because you're at the park, the ordinance is still in effect. But
Well, actually, I just want to point out, it's actually tighter at the park. In the city, you can have a dog off a leash currently under voice command. In the park, they have to be physically on a leash.
Correct.
So I definitely like that. I like reminding people of that. I mean, there's some stuff, vandalism. Yeah, vandalism is against the law. I don't know that we need to list that. Maybe we do, but I think overall I like the idea of keeping them short and particularly hitting the non-obvious ones.
Yeah, I don't think the vandals are gonna read that and go like, oh darn, I can't vandalize.
Now, one that staff kind of went back and forth on was fires, except in a barbecue pit. It's kind of obvious, but it might be good to add it on the abbreviated version just as a reminder. Keep your fires in the barbecue pit, not on the ground in a ring of stones.
I think we could probably add a barbecue pit or two.
Okay.
I mean, it's just something I've noticed that there's just a couple, 3 maybe.
Might be off discussion.
No, well, but yeah, we are a little bit.
Bill's twitching.
Counselor, how about a liability statement on the signs?
Okay, so we can move forward with that. Take another look at.
Charlie had a question.
How about a liability statement on the signs that and they use it to park at their own risk?
Yeah, first one, use park equipment at your own risk.
Yeah, but it's on the right-hand side.
Well, that's what he's asking is which one do you want? But yeah, I would
I see
agree.
what you're saying.
You'd probably want that liability. Whatever
Yeah.
sign you put on, you'd want that general.
Yes. Yes. I would recommend it.
I might be a little bit concerned that there'd be some confusion with the no organized sports activities or the no inflatable playhouses after we just got through saying that they could have them.
Right,
Those
those
would
would obviously be removed.
Okay.
They'd be coming off,
Yeah.
I hope. But I agree with Mike, some of the stuff.
Some of the
on
stuff that's
left-hand
obvious,
side, the
yeah.
vandalism, yada, yada, yeah, we know.
No
that.
horseback riding, I think that kind of falls under the loose pets or animals, maybe, I don't know.
They're on a leash, right?
Do we have an issue with horseback riding in the park? I don't.
Yeah, we actually have had people riding through the park.
Well, there you have
Only
it.
the ones that come in
You can
RVs.
lead it, but you can't.
Now, as far as the other design aspects, added the police non-emergency number to the
I like
bottom.
that.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
I would just clarify it's for non-emergencies.
Okay.
So any real emergency at the park, people still need to call 911.
Yeah, we can add that.
Can add non-emergency.
You can say police,
I would-
emergency.
I think I would just add emergency, call 911. Rather than
Or
saying
take off the word
non-emergency.
police, just leave the number. But
Yeah.
Just for emergency, call
emergencies,
911.
911.
Okay. And if we scroll to the next, thank you, Chris. Again, this is looking at specifically the spray ground rules. On the left-hand side are the rules we currently have up on the temporary signs. And on the right-hand side is a more abbreviated, again, hitting those highlight areas for the spray ground in particular. It also removes some of the confusion on the temporary signs where it says alcohol is not allowed within 10 feet. Well, alcohol is not allowed in the park at all, period.
Right.
So that's been been cleaned up in the shortened version. And again, like...
This may be another time to remind them of no glass. I don't know, it may be redundant, but again, you got little kids running around bare feet on a hard surface. But I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Makes sense.
Do you want, so on the abbreviated list, because we do have bicyclists and skateboarders and such, is that something we think we might want to include? Again, that's unusual because on the rest of the sidewalks, we don't care if the people are bicycling, and you know, the way that's constructed, you could,
right,
you potentially...
Absolutely, and that, again, that was one where it was kind of on the fence because it is specific to, you know, you don't want people on their skateboards or scooters tearing up the spray ground surface, that cool deck.
Right.
But
we're perfectly cool with them riding around on the rest of the sidewalks.
Right.
So to me, that's an exception that you'd want to point that out in the spray ground area that's different than the rest of the park. It's just, again, that's my thought. I don't know.
I'm seeing some nodding heads.
Sure.
I don't see it being a bad idea.
And then the lightning and thunder reminder is again, you know, unique because of the water. It's a recommendation. Obviously, people ought to know better, but I don't know what are people's thoughts on that one. I mean,
people don't necessarily know better. I think it's good to put it on the sign.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, we can assume common sense.
Don't ever do that. Yeah.
We may want to keep the no roughhousing or aggressive behavior since it's a spray area.
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure anything needs to be cut on the left, other than the walk, don't run. Well, I guess you don't need no lifeguard on duty. You don't. Just take off no lifeguard on duty, and maybe the walk don't run.
You take off rubber-soled shoe.
Yeah, 'cause with the cool deck, most of the kids running around in, I guess everybody I've seen has been in tennis shoes, but there's also I see when they're little kids, they're often bare feet.
Right, and you know, it's a rule sign and it's a recommendation.
Yeah.
By its own right, so.
I don't really, on the rubber sole shoes, I don't have a real opinion on that one. I think it's good to remind about the rough housing, but I don't really, the profane language again applies to the whole park and sort of is a behave yourself. I don't think we need to restate that.
Okay. We can make some adjustments.
Okay.
So that covers the rewording, and you kind of see one design style of the actual sign itself. And if we scroll down, we can move more into the design, how you want the permanent signs to look. I would say that some of staff's recommendations would be to keep the consistent look that the city has is with we do a metal pole with a black powder coating, kind of like what we've done with all of our other signs, just to keep that consistent look. With the abbreviated sign, and we can look at sizing, you know, you may be able to get away with a single pole and the sign mounted in the middle of that pole. If you do get a bigger sign, it'd probably look better to have a pole on either side with the sign mounted in between. But there's some pictures here and some.
We'd be looking at a style that's similar to our neighborhood signs?
Yes.
Or, okay. I do like using our official city logo.
So if you have any
I'd like to see it small enough to fit on one pole, make it unobtrusive. So,
All of them or just?
I'd
Doesn't
like
mean
to see
that-
all of them, but.
I would agree with this, on the spray ground area signs and maybe the tennis court and basketball signs. I
Okay.
wonder if the sign, the big one, the main one you would see driving in might want to be a little larger so that you can kind of see, hey, these are the rules that you're coming into.
You're thinking you read it from your car?
Well, you can see the sign in the, not in the circle, but in the area right behind that. So you go, hey, say Shenandoah Park rules and regulations. So you may not read it from the car, but it's there. It's for you to go to see. And you probably want another, you can do a smaller version at the pavilion entrance. But to say, yes, there are rules and regulations, and you can't say I didn't see the sign, would be my, the police have to come up and go, hey, that's not allowed. What? There's no sign. Well, yeah, there's a sign here, and there's a big one you had to drive by to get here.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, the main entry where you'd be coming in a vehicle, make that sign bigger so it's easier to read from the vehicle, but the signs placed at more pedestrian entrances, make those a smaller single post.
I think we'd get away with the smaller single post signs because you would be, you'd be reasonably close to it.
Right, you'll be on foot rather than in a vehicle.
Yeah, maybe. And we can talk about those details once we get, but that's my thought.
I'd say keep it small. If we need to, if it becomes a problem, we need to put up a billboard, we can address it.
And we could also do a sign like the demonstration, the Meanwood Park sign, that one.
I sort of like the map of the park.
I kind of like the map, I kind of like the overview. A sign like that might be useful as an entrance sign as opposed to a rules and regulations sign, maybe.
Be more comfortable with that.
Okay.
Well, you could do both.
I mean, you can put a little set of rules
Yeah,
at
you
the
put a
bottom
little set of
it,
rules
but-
over there on the side.
But I do like that, and I liked whenever the park was under construction that there was that, particularly the Toddler Park. But this park had one too. But the big, hey, this is what it's going to look like. But we've got a final. We know what it looks like. Pavilion. This is where the pavilion is. This is where the pavilion entrance is. This is where the map's pretty cool.
So the map would be on the one sign, the main
one,
entrance.
yes.
Yeah.
Then the pedestrian signs, would be just a smaller version with just the rules posted.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are we including the abbreviated version of the rules on this sign with the map?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
can be
I
off
think
to the
so.
side.
I think
Okay.
down
off
to off to the
I
side.
didn't know if I
because-
was hearing two different signs or
Yeah,
just
we
the
don't
one.
we don't have a Meanwood Valley Trail, so kind of
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yeah, we
we
should,
do have-
we should be able to look at
we'll
some
have
of the
some room
design.
But there's an exact distance if you walk around the park, right?
Yeah, so you can put that on there.
Isn't there like little markers?
There's not markers out
There's
there.
not markers, but it's
But-
if you walk around the park, it's a certain distance, right?
Yes.
I don't remember what it is, but.
I don't
okay.
either. I
Me and
calculated it once on several different paths.
Right.
I can't remember exactly what it was.
So you
I
could
think it
put-
was a third of a mile. Don't
Yeah,
quote me on that one.
But we could put things like that up there. If you walk this path, there's some little things you can put on there to make it look nice.
Okay. I believe that covers every topic that was mentioned at the last council meeting.
So will this come back as an ordinance to amend the ordinance based on tonight's discussion?
It can. I don't know if you need.
I think you made some
Well,
specific
actually,
changes.
because of the penalties, yes, I think we're going to need to. Yeah.
And then we'll also just rewrite the basketball court rules and make signs that are consistent with our other signs. So the signage will be consistent throughout. So we'll have playground rules. We'll also have a little basketball rules, basketball and tennis court.
Okay.
Like right now, they're just tied off to the chain link fence.
Correct.
Okay.
So have these in posts in the ground.
That's,
that-
I think it would look nice.
Okay.
Are we looking at using a different type of material than our current signs are?
Yes, it'll be a metal sign rather than the wooden ones in there were temporary. But no, the permanent sign will be a metal.
Okay, we ready to move on to item 16, or do we have any more discussion and/or presentation, since we're not going to be taking the action? Alrighty then. Item 16, discussion and possible action to approve the purchase of a police Tahoe.
Make a motion to approve the police Tahoe as indicated.
Second?
So I have a motion by Councilman McLeod, I have a second by Councilman Raymaker. Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 17, discussion regarding building codes. This is a discussion-only item.
Council, this has come back after waiting in line for, excuse me, for a few months. Councilman Fletcher wanted to discuss a couple of items, and this is sort of a kickoff to the discussion of building codes. We do have Jackie Thompson and our building official, Annie Savota, here who can answer some questions for you. And we have a couple of general topics here that to kind of initiate the discussion.
Good evening, Mayor, Council.
Evening.
So I just wanted to start off with basically stating that the building code expressly says that it is a minimum standard for construction and installation. So I would caution against amending the building code without first using factual evidence for this particular location. You have to be very careful, obviously, for several reasons. The first being assumed liability to the city when we are amending a minimum standard. The next would be the city's ISO rating. The city currently has a 1, and for those who don't know, ISO reports to insurers. The insurers use that rating to provide homeowners and property owners in the city with insurance rates. That's not to say that I would not be open to amending certain portions of the building code, but I just wanted to basically start off by stating so. And I'm open for questions.
So I originally, several months ago, I'd asked for this item to come up, not to change our building code, especially when it comes to new construction and even remodels, but more for us to look at a repair or a fix. Because the way the current code is written, as we look at the IBC 15 as our current models are identity, Danny has to enforce everything that code represents. There's no leniency that he can provide within that code. And so what happens in the valley, if we have a repair that's made, and we've all have heard the stories of somebody changing out a simple appliance such as a stove, but because it's direct wired, which doesn't meet code currently, as soon as they disconnect, they have to replace everything from the back of that stove out to the box, including the box, up to the pole, and so a $500 repair is now turned into a $4,500 repair. When in reality, we could have actually just put an outlet and rewired that new appliance, not direct, but through an outlet, still running out to the box. It just gives options for our homeowners to be able to make some sensible repairs, especially those that are on a fixed income without having to spend $4,500 to rewire the entire house. At the same time, in looking at that, I think there's some things that we have to look at as a city as well, from a liability standpoint. Obviously, if our inspector goes out and he sees something that's wrong, then we need to be able to identify that to the homeowner that this would be something that would normally be required for you to repair. But a homeowner that went in and get a permit for a new roof, And it gets re-roofed and all the roofing material is put back on appropriately, and we go inside the house to go open the attic to inspect the vent pipes to see if the vent pipes are all hooked up, and we identify that, you know, the furnace is outdated or something of that nature, and then now we're requiring the homeowner not only replace the roof, but now we're looking at HVAC system and everything else to come in behind. All they wanted to do was stop a leak.
What you're saying is we're not building or taking a 50-year-old home and making it to today's.
Correct.
Well, I think you need to identify the differences. There's aesthetics and there's life, health, safety issues. And when you have a life, health, safety issue, I think that we need to point out. I mean, we've got, you know, somebody's put a you know, copper conductor outlet mounted directly to aluminum wires. You've got a roof penetration where you've got the heater exactly laying right up on the wood. These are just because they didn't put the right stuff on. Now, re-roofing is the perfect time to put your new vents in. But I totally agree with what you're saying, and I think we need to limit the forced corrections to life, health, safety. But we also need to point out.
Absolutely.
And point them out. Make sure that, you know, make the homeowner sign off on them. But if, you know, if
But at that point, it makes it the homeowner's choice rather than the city saying you have to do this.
What say you?
Well, I will appreciate that, Charlie. I will say that the building code in each section actually does, it does make an amendment for that, for alterations and repairs. It does state that the existing dwelling does not have to come up to modern code if it's left as is. Now, obviously, those components which are altered or repaired or added to do have to come up to code. You know, I have to use my professional judgment, and I have a professional obligation to ensure that that building is as safe as possible when I leave it. That doesn't mean that we make everything within that dwelling come up to code. There's plenty of times where I do an inspection and I notice something which is left untouched, and I may point that out to a homeowner, just, hey, in the future, I know you're making some updates to your home. When possible, you may want to address this. So I just wanted to clarify that we do not go in with the intent of forcing the entire residence to come up to code, because some of these homes, especially in our older areas, that's impossible. I mean, without financially hamstringing that resident. And that's not the intent, and that's not the purpose of the building code. So if council directed us to possibly write and adopt some official form for homeowners, an affidavit of sorts to sign, I would be in favor of that.
So let me ask you, Danny, what leeway do you have for a homeowner? We'll use the specific example that I did in the beginning. We're replacing a stove, and it's direct wired. Where do you stop in making them?
So if it was code approved at the time of its installation, then we leave it alone. If I look at it and I know off the bat that was never code approved, it would need to come up to a safe standard. That does not necessarily mean modern building code standard, but a safe standard for that resident.
And I would assume we would have some liability if we didn't do that.
We would, absolutely, and that's kind of what why I wanted to lead off with the assumed liability to the city. The building codes are a minimum standard, so anytime you deviate from that, especially when you're becoming more lenient, there could be some assumed liability to the city in the event of a catastrophic failure within that dwelling. Not to say that we would be found liable, but you kind of open the door for it.
I like your approach and the recommendation of perhaps, well, while I was here, I saw these things. Here you go. It's up to you to do something about it. It'd be similar to if you were buying the house and you were that inspector. Okay, you can negotiate for dollars from the seller, but in this case, now you know, and here's a document that says so, and that would also be something they would have to disclose when they sell the house. So it's kind of covering those people who are living there now and future buyers.
That's right. And some choose to listen and some don't, but that's that's their option as a homeowner.
We just don't want people to think that you have an inspection, it feels like now there's a warrant to search my house.
Right.
For everything that's wrong and make me make this house totally 100% compliant.
Right, and like I said, that's not the purpose and that's not the intent of the inspections. And so we do our best, obviously, to help those individuals while we're there without becoming so cumbersome to them that, like I said, they're financially burdened. And we don't want to deter people from updating their homes either. I mean, you know, home built in the 70s, if you're doing modern updates to it, it's going to be better than it was. That's just common sense. So we don't want to detract those individuals from doing so.
Correct. But how could we, as a city, then put what you expect up front so the homeowner has the expectation of what it's going to cost to repair this, whatever, before, rather than coming in behind and saying, oh, you forgot this, and I won't sign off until you do
Yes,
all
sir.
that, which is what?
No, I understand that. With some of your larger projects, there tends to be more communication prior to the actual permitting process and the submitting for plans. And I'm more than open to meeting with the contractors, the homeowners. I'll go out to their residence. I've done so plenty of times. I'll meet with their contractors, whether it be in the office or in the field. We'll discuss every possibility of what we could run into. And that tends to be helpful. It kind of opens their eyes a little bit. It lets them know that I'm not some ghost that's just going to show up. I'm a person too. We understand them and what they're trying to do. And so typically it's just communication. That's kind of how we address it. Most individuals who are not in the construction field in some way have very little knowledge of the building code. And so, yeah, you have times where there's, you know, some shock or some sticker shock, and we try our best to alleviate that as best we can.
I think a lot of the problems are probably lack of communication between the contractor and the homeowner. So doing whatever you can to get around the contractor and communicate with the homeowner.
Yeah,
I encourage you to do that. But.
Yes, sir. You hear that a lot. It's the city's fault, or this inspector's just being unwilling to budge. And typically, when I speak to the homeowner, the attitude kind of changes. We kind of resolve a lot of issues. So that is the case sometimes.
Would it make sense or even be feasible to offer some sort of a pre-inspection service to the homeowners where if they called in and say, hey, here's a project I'm thinking about doing, can we have someone come out and kind of assess what this might look like in terms of, you know, additional costs that the city might?
I mean, absolutely. We would have to come up with some sort of a procedure, obviously, but I would be more than willing to do so. I think that would help out tremendously.
Could we maybe take a look at that and try to come up with a way to put some, I mean, I know time is money, and that puts more on everybody's plate, but if the time's there and it's available, it might alleviate some of the headaches down the road and re-inspecting and having fights or whatever.
Well, I think there's two issues here.
Yes,
There's one about doing a remodel
Right.
or aesthetically.
And that's what I'm talking about, is remodel.
Right, and I'm back to, if we're doing a repair, that's a whole nother ballgame than somebody planning to do a remodel.
So you wouldn't even be, he wouldn't even be involved without a permit.
Correct.
So, Mr. Fletcher wants to change his
So my water
dishwasher,
heater-
and it's
my water heater
hardwired,
does that, yeah.
and Lowe's brings a new dishwasher out, and they won't touch it.
Correct.
So you wouldn't even know about that, or if he hired an electrician, then he'd have to get a permit, or if he did it himself, no one would be the wiser. So I'm trying to figure out the liability to the city in all these scenarios.
Well, in that circumstance, yeah, in that circumstance, that would be the homeowner's liability. If they were to have an issue down the line and they chose to do the work illegally without a permit within city limits, that's the homeowner's choice to do so. When they wanted to sell their home, if there were any records pulled on that home prior to the sale of it, that would be the homeowner's responsibility to explain those. That would not be the city's life. I mean, we can't be everywhere. We can't monitor everyone at all times, obviously. I'm not here Saturday and Sunday, and I hear some stories of what's going on Saturday and Sunday all the time, so I get that.
Construction truck show.
Exactly. So, you know, we do our best, the best we can, but yeah, absolutely. If there were a homeowner doing work unpermitted within the city limits, that would be the liability of that homeowner.
So I guess what I'm looking at as far as more in-depth discussion is specifically back to those repair items, not so much items that are going to be, I mean, if we're remodeling a bathroom, this is exactly what you have to do. And as Byron says, if there's a service that we can provide, and you too, Mayor, that, you know, could let them know ahead of time the things that they're going to have to do. That's much different than, you know, my water heater busted and I got to get a new water heater, and I call for somebody I call Sears and say, hey, bring out a water heater, and I say I live in Shenandoah, and they say, oh, we don't do Shenandoah.
Maybe at that time we can call and ask for the, you know.
Well, again, we go from an $800 repair to a $3,800 repair at that point. That should be my choice as a homeowner. If I chose, you know, as long as I didn't have gas valve issues, and, you know, as long as that life safety was followed through, you know, if I chose not to, for whatever reason, I don't know why somebody would, but just as a bad example, I guess, if I chose not to put a pan under my water heater to catch, you know, a leaky water heater, then that's on me. That's not on the city. That was my choice. Now, the next person buying my house, you know, obviously the inspector's going to come in, and the first thing he's going to hit me for is no pan under my water heater. So it's still my choice as a homeowner. So I'm looking at it from that perspective. I'm not looking at rewriting code to change the integrity of a remodel or the integrity of, you know, a new construction project. All those should stay in place. I'm looking just specifically in a fix or repair circumstance or situation. You know, there needs to be a stopping point from, as Charlie just said, my dishwasher goes out, it's direct wired. As soon as I disconnect, we're in trouble. Because that project just went from a $450 dishwasher to a $4,500 rewire.
Now, to back up a little bit, there's two things I don't know if everybody caught it. He says that if it was built to code originally, there's a lot more flexibility. The problem is that we're finding a lot of stuff out there that was not originally built to the code at the time period it was originally constructed.
Even the 1972 code, like the house was originally constructed,
the 1972 code, it wasn't built like that. We have PVC lines for gas line.
Yeah.
If you're in the attic looking at the re-roof,
we cannot let PVC.
You can't.
We're going to have to tear up the whole city.
The homeowner's going, I've lived here 45 years, it hasn't killed me yet. Well, the problem is that even in 1972, PVC in that area was not allowed. So as soon as
So I guess my question would be, did we have a building code process in the city of Shenandoah in 1972?
We didn't have a city.
We didn't have a city. The jurisdiction that the county, I believe, had the jurisdiction over it. I'm guessing, but usually it goes to the county at that point. So at that point, that means that the original builder didn't build it right. It wasn't inspected to the same standards or the same effort that we have today. So therefore, when you're up there checking the roof and you're tripping over a PVC gas line, you don't have a choice. Now, is that going to be a $4,500? It shouldn't be. The other thing is that there's also more than one way. He can just replace the PVC section, or he can replace the whole gas line because it's 45 years old. Same thing with the wiring. There's different ways of fixing it. I call it the Eichelberg way, which means that it's as cheap as possible. Or there's a way to where I'm already touching it, let's go all the way back and upgrade the whole electrical system in the house, which turns into a $4,500. That's not the city forcing that upgrade. That's the homeowner choosing to fix what used to be just an appliance swap out And then all of a sudden he's saying, oh, the city maybe do a $12,000 rewiring on the whole house. No, that was your choice to do it to solve the problem that way. We didn't say you had to rewire the whole house on a couple of different situations. So I don't know if that clarifies or helps any, but
What would give them the impression that they had to?
the contractor on that one particular one, the contractor they had, that's how he recommended solving it, and that's what they chose to do.
Yeah, and I mean, the contractor can upsell and say the
Right.
city's
Yeah.
requiring it, so all of a
Yeah.
sudden I get,
Yeah, and
good
the
change.
city's the one that took the blame for it, for requiring the contractor to touch more than what he had to. We were not going to get in the way of the city and the contractor business. We were just going to make sure that whatever was done met a safe liability of the code for a remodel of a 40-plus-year-old house. Again, I don't know if that helps. And that was a very frustrating particular project without
And
getting into
I
details.
don't know all the details on that project at all.
Because
Some of the
there
other
was finger pointing and there was stuff going on all over the place.
Well, yeah. Like, anytime that we have government involvement, it's always going to be the government's fault.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. I think, and I don't want our building department to think anything less. I'm not, I think the world of our building department, and what
And-
you all do and the job that gets done.
And I'm assuming that
keeping
you also
everybody
don't,
safe.
you also don't want myself or the building official becoming the homeowner's project manager.
No, absolutely not.
For whatever, so that,
That's not the
we
purpose
are
of it either.
right on a very thin line, and he probably has more stories than I do on, well, is this done right?
I think we've had some really good discussions so far. Why don't we do this? I think you had mentioned a couple ideas that maybe you can circle back to us on.
Yeah.
Come up with some thoughts. I like the idea of maybe in some cases a pre-inspection, but I don't think we can solve all the world's problems tonight, but I think we've had some really good discussions, some stuff to work on moving forward.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for coming.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. Okay, let's move on to item 18, which is ratify the accounts payable for the month of December 2017. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilman Brott.
second.
I have a second by Councilman Beavers. Do we have discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item 19, Citizens Forum. Did not have anybody sign up to speak, so we greatly appreciate y'all coming. So from there, we will move into item 20, which is department reports by our interim city administrator.
Council, I'm just going to give you a few highlights here. The polar plunge was a success. It was very cold this year, so we had about 28 people jump in. We had 70 other people show up to come cheer and support. We had some civic club, police officers, lifeguards. We had a good turnout. 2 reporters, no rescues by lifeguards, and yeah, that's a good one. And EMS and fire were on standby but not needed. An update on the pool slide. Public Works has discovered that the structure that supports the slide has rusted and it's a safety hazard. So we're going to have that replaced. The goal is to have it done by the time the swim season starts, so we are getting estimates for those repairs.
Is there a code for that?
Nice.
And to add to that, the bucket feature at the splash pad, it's a bucket that gathers water and then spills it back out. That was vandalized, so we are going to have to replace that. We've got a quote for $1,800, and we are looking at it as an insurance claim. So, and then finally, to touch on the bad smell in the middle of the night. I know the mayor was in contact with Centerpoint in the neighborhood in the middle of the night. I was talking to Public Works. Our water operators went and checked throughout the city, the lift stations, the wastewater treatment plant, and so forth, and our system was fine. There was nothing on our end. I know Public Works has been in contact with SJRA today, and to my knowledge, they have not detected any issues with their system either, so.
That's correct.
I'm sorry, Joseph?
That's correct.
So we've yet to identify the source. Apparently, it's been reported in other parts of the county, so it's, we experienced it last night, but it's been kind of moving around apparently, so. I'm not really sure of the source, but thanks to everyone for their part in working through it last night to make sure that there's nothing wrong with our systems. And other than that, those are just some current updates. If y'all have any questions on the department reports, we're happy to answer them.
I just want to add PD along with Public Works.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yourself, they were also very helpful last night in the middle of the night to, you know, try to canvass the area and see if they couldn't help figure out the problem. Okay, we'll move into item 21 then, which is council inquiry, and we will start with Councilman McLeod.
I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
One thing that we brought up the pool, Kathy, and just put this on your radar if you would. When we did the Too Cool for School, I noticed that you got a pump with fire hoses that cool the water. That was a purchase. Well, what I did notice is they had an extension cord coming out of the building and put this at the edge of the pool, and that was a very high traffic area with a lot of kids running up. I think we need to think of a more permanent solution for that. I don't know how many, we'll get with Woody and see what she thinks.
Joseph and Woody and I can put our heads together on that.
But it's a nice feature, and that's all I.
It is. Okay.
Councilman Beavers?
Yeah, we had several developments and public hearings scheduled for last week at P&Z and then would have been tonight. But due to the winter storm that we had, they got delayed. So I was wondering if Kathy, you or Jackie could kind of just tell us what we would have seen tonight and when it'll be coming.
They're actually due to come to council, some are on the 14th and some are on the 28th. So we did have to reschedule primarily the P&Z public hearing. So if you have anything to add to that.
Did you want specific applications?
If you don't mind.
Last Tuesday's P&Z meeting had 6 applications that were on for public hearing that are being postponed or rescheduled. 4 of them, which were supposed to be on the agenda tonight, which we have moved to the February 6th Planning and Zoning meeting, and then we will see at the next City Council meeting. There is a special use permit for the Woodlofts apartment, the mixed-use development. There's a special use permit for Mod Superfast Pizza, their alcohol, wine, and beer sale. Metro Park sign ordinance or PDD 13 amendments and PDD 12 amendments, which are the Wellman Manor development. Like I said, those will be February 6th public hearing and then February 14th for City Council. Also at that meeting last Tuesday, we were supposed to have a Plan Development District 11 zoning regulation amendment and a SUP for 8915 Metro Park, which is Dave & Buster's. Those first public hearing at P&Z has been postponed to the 6th. The regular second meeting at Planning and Zoning and City Council are still on schedule.
Thank you. Looking through the department reports, there's 2 things I wanted to point out. Our sales tax numbers are really looking good, so that's good news for us.
I remember a certain mayor predicting that.
He did. And 2, I like seeing the payments from all of our hotel properties.
I noticed
Nice.
that.
Not
Good.
having,
That was nice to see.
Good to see.
And lastly, Eagle Forum is hosting forums for all the different races in Montgomery County and in this building. They've done, I think, 3. There's 2 more. I think it's a really good opportunity for residents of the county, and specifically really convenient for Shenandoah residents to go and learn about the election. There's 2 more coming up tomorrow night and a week from tomorrow. So if you haven't been, I recommend you going. Betty Anderson and her group has done a really good job with that.
We've gotten a lot of praise too through the county and all of the participants. So the city of Shenandoah.
Absolutely.
It's good. It's a good event.
Councilman Fletcher?
I don't have anything. I'm good.
Councilman Raymaker?
I just wanted to thank Kathy and Joseph, Chief, for how you handled the storm. We had no problems, no serious problems that I'm aware of, so I think you guys handled the situation very well.
Yeah, there were a few more people that were sleeping here.
Yeah, if I can add to that. We had
Well, I
another
can't
stay.
name everybody, but.
Well, we had several people who stayed 48 hours straight, just to be on standby if needed. I know Debbie was one of them. She helped push out communications to people as we got updates. Joseph was here, the police, so we did have a lot of people. It was a good team effort.
And due to that cycle trim, I didn't hear of anybody's power going out.
I don't have any reports of power out now. That was a good thing.
And then lastly, Bill, I don't know if I'm out of line with this one. Do you have any knowledge or can you address anything regarding what Mr. Henson was talking about earlier?
Well, I can address it. The complaint was turned appropriately over to the police department because that would be a potential conflict. The police department and Raymond Shaw sought out another independent department to do an investigation. It's my understanding that investigation has been done, and that's then turned over to the district attorney's office to make a decision based upon the investigation. This city cannot and should not be in contact with the district attorney's office regarding its investigation. That would be viewed as the city interfering with an investigation. So I understand Mr. Henson may be unhappy with the way the speed of the investigation, but that is outside the bounds of the city, and it would be inappropriate for the city to interfere in any way with that investigation. So we're, at this point, to do the right thing, we don't do anything.
In your opinion, is there any grounds there? Is there any there?
No.
Could you expand on that?
Well, I mean, it's a decision for the district attorney to make. I was not part of any investigation, but as a civil lawyer looking at the ordinance, there is no violation whatsoever.
Okay. All right, thanks. I just find the allegations reprehensible by certain folks to be making these. This is an absolutely ridiculous attack on a person who's done nothing to deserve this, who's been a co-worker of many of you. I'm just ashamed of. All right. Thanks, Bill. I'm done.
Anybody got anything else? Well, I will say that after a considerable amount of prayer and discussion with my family, that we've decided we have enjoyed serving you as your mayor for the last little over a year and a half. And I'm happy to say that tonight I submitted my name for the May 5th ballot to the interim city administrator, and we would be honored to have the privilege to do so again. So with that, we will move into executive session. We're going to meet on government code, city administrator, and finance director. Thanks for coming, everybody. Have a great night.